Okay, so now that I talked about that, it's time to get into the three different expressions: the good, the evil, and the neutral. One of the things I noticed growing up Christian is that now it's just my opinion. A lot of religions, they kind of impose guilt upon you by knowing that there is an afterlife and that your choices dictate what's going to happen to you. Not all religions do that, but Christianity does. So I had a lot of guilt growing up for some of the actions that I've done, and I had a difficulty understanding if I was a good or evil person. So in a psychological aspect, I would have cognitive dissonance because I would think I'm a good person, yet I would do things that I would consider to be evil or wrong, and that caused a lot of stress on me. So when I was about I can say like 12, 13, I created this design to kind of organize my thoughts. Now this chart I can't really understand it because I did it such a long time ago, but this chart is kind of where all this ideal of three expressions of the soul came from. Now it's really simple. It talks about the center right here is the source of all things, that you start innocent and then you spin in a wheel between a good domination and an evil domination, but from each one you're gonna take a little bit of both, so you're not gonna be completely good or completely evil. And that ideal seems to me that it came from the ideal of yin and yang in China, or in and yo in Japanese ideal, because I used to study a lot about that too before I did martial arts. I was interested in the like I said, philosophical portion of it. So what does that mean? Okay, now I believe that God created us inherently good, because I think God is the purest form of innocence. So he created us inherently innocent, okay? But we cannot be completely good, because good is not the absence of evil. It's actually the knowledge of evil and acting opposing evil. So just as evil is not the absence of good, it's the opposing of good and the choice. And the choice is free will. Now a lot of psychology now almost says that we humans have no free will, which I can understand the argument, because a lot of the things of nurture and nature affects our behaviors. Our DNA kind of make us predisposed or have a predisposition to certain things, like a common one is alcoholism. Now I can understand that argument, but we still have a choice. At least I believe so. So I believe that free will is very important to whether we are doing good actions or bad actions. So I think that's a key element to why free will is important, and why the fact that God did not create evil. If we are inherently good or inherently innocent and he gave us free will, the only logical explanation for why evil exists is because that we chose it. It's not because God created it. God cannot create evil. What we consider to be God, or those who believe in God to be a completely good entity, it doesn't make sense logically that it can create evil. Even though it's all powerful, evil would not be possible, because something inherently, completely, the source of all good cannot create evil. So the I guess you can say the perpetrator of evil is the humans who use their free will to do it. So that's my belief on good and evil, and that kind of goes along with my ideals of why I disagree with death penalty, because the fact that we take someone's life kind of diminishes the ideal that we support, the ideal that people can change. So once you kill someone, you automatically say that they cannot change, and that leaves a long-lasting effect on the human population, because we either say that people change and they have a choice of what they do, or that we say that you are what you are always based on your actions. So that's a little take on that. I will talk about that probably in a later video. Okay, now getting more into the ideal of neutrality, or being neutral. I want to use the example of God. Now considering that we are human, we're material as well as spiritual, in my understanding. Does God have free will? Because God is not a material thing. He's a metaphysical thing. So, does God have free will? In my opinion, God does not have free will, because free will is mainly an expression of a material being. So God does not have free will. God creates good, and God judges good, and he or she creates. That has nothing to do with free will. Free will is more of a choice based on a material thing, like our bodies and our minds, within the containment of a soul. And the soul, whether it be imprisoned in our body or by choice or by duty, expresses through our body and through our mind. So it is separate from our body, but expresses through these two other entities, our body and our mind. So when I do, as an example, when I do martial arts, I'm expressing my soul. I'm not expressing my mind. I'm expressing my soul. When I think about something, I'm expressing my soul. Everything that I do, I'm expressing my soul in a material aspect, in a material sense. So when, for example, when the reason why we are judged based on our free will and what we do in a material sense, because it is an expression of our souls. It's not because of a DNA or of a thought pattern, which we can do things incorrectly based on damaged mind, but I still think it comes from the expression of the soul. Okay, and I know that might cause some people to say disagreements. That's fine, because I know that if someone's mentally retarded or something like that, you say that, am I talking about this expression of soul? That gets a little bit more difficult, and I don't want to get into that right now because I don't have much time for the video, and it looks like this is going to be a two-parter, so I'll probably discuss that another time. But anyway, so neutrality. Neutrality is not what something non-material can do either. Neutrality is having knowledge of good and evil and choosing to either express both, without choosing, or to express not at all. So example of that would be a person whose mind does not feel guilty for doing evil acts and does good acts without even thinking about it. I'm trying to think of an example. Okay, for example, like a serial killer who goes around killing other people's families but has a family of their own. That would be a person who I think is neutral, because they don't really care what they're doing, even though they have good and love in them for their own family. They don't care about other families. So there's some kind of disconnect of their expression of their soul. Also, I think that someone is neutral in the fact, like maybe some Buddhist monks who are extremely passive, who keep themselves shut off from other people. They're neutral because they do not want to express. I mean, there are instances that they do, but the ones that keep themselves isolated, or other religions keep themselves isolated, or other people who choose not to interact, they're neutral because they don't want to do either a good act or a bad act. So, and I can say for a fact that at a time I considered myself neutral because I didn't feel like I could do anything to help the world. So I kind of, in these journals I have on my desk right here, this being the first one, and I have 7 of these journals, this is the 7th right here, I talk about the ideal that in order for me not to have so much stress and guilt over the good and evil actions, is just not to care and just to be. And just being is a neutral act, instead of being a good person or a bad person, or trying to be or strive for one of those things. So I also, in some of my writings, I have a pen name, and it's entitled Neutrality's Halfwing, and that's where that stems from. If someone from some of my social networks, they ask me what that name means, and it comes from a pen name, and one of my first journal, Neutrality's Halfwinged, is from that ideal that I don't want to choose good and evil because it's too stressful. It's like I don't want to be in the battle. I don't want to be in the fight. I don't want to think about it. So